Awesome. So I'm so excited to be here today and talk to you about making AI real in global health. And I'm going to give you real information about a case study. So these are my disclosures. I do a lot of AI radiology consulting. I work with Google and Watson Health over in Cambridge and GE. And recently I've started working with some radiology AI startups. So I'm in an academic medical setting, and I think a lot about AI and how it's going to impact radiologists. And I frequently get questions from medical students about whether or not they should still go into radiology and what the future of radiology is. So today I'm going to talk about the global health problem of tuberculosis, a lot of AI hype and how to cut through that hype and really get to some AI reality, and how AI can impact global health, which I don't think is a topic that a lot of people think about when they're thinking about AI, because I think there's this idea that AI is only going to be for high-income countries and it's only the best of healthcare, but I actually think there's a lot that AI can do in the realm of global health. So let's talk about tuberculosis for a moment. We all learn about tuberculosis in medical school, and I think that we learn about it and then we kind of put that knowledge away because most people in this room, US-based physicians, are not dealing with tuberculosis routinely. However, the World Health Organization lists it in their top 10 causes of death worldwide and as an epidemic. And in 2017, 10 million patients worldwide were affected by tuberculosis. And it usually affects the lungs, but it can go to the brain, to the bones, and the reproductive organs when it's not treated and have significant morbidity and mortality. And it is the #1 cause of secondary infection and death for HIV patients around the world. So why does this matter? Well, typically the diagnosis of tuberculosis is made with a chest x-ray and a sputum culture. Well, sputum cultures are actually pretty expensive depending on the part of the world that you live in. So the chest x-ray becomes the screening tool because it's a lot cheaper. Well, you need a radiologist usually to read a chest x-ray. However, that sounds a little bit more difficult than you would expect. So in many parts of the world, the ratio of a radiologist to a patient is 1 to 1 million. So there's literally one of me for 1 million patients. I can't even wrap my head around that when I think about these figures. And in Tanzania, for example, there's 58 radiologists for 56 million patients. And India is a little bit better off. They have 1 radiologist to 100,000 patients. But this is actually the number of a radiologist to a patient. Your average patient is not just having 1 imaging study, right? They're having multiple imaging studies. So multiply that again, and it just becomes astounding to think about it. So this is a lot of AI hype. Let's take a moment to look at this slide. I've got the newest one right in the middle. This is why I get messages all the time asking me if people should still go into radiology. And I laugh at it because I think that it's just, it's a little absurd. So my favorite headline in this right now is AI can outperform doctors, so why don't patients trust it? That has a lot of implications, right? So apparently, I didn't know this, but you can go to a hospital and choose between a human physician and an AI, and when you ask radiologists and you ask physicians at large, how many of you are using AI right now in clinical practice? I'm asking everyone in the room, how many?
0.
I see maybe 2 hands. Okay, and that's a lot more than I expected. And when you ask radiologists, the answer is usually no. There's a lot of radiologists that are doing great research, and we're publishing about AI, but we're not usually using it practically or clinically. And all the hype about replacing radiologists with AI isn't really applicable when you're looking at other parts of the world because there might not be a radiologist to replace, going back to those numbers that we have outside of the United States. So what's the reality? I'm going to show a real case study where AI is being used to impact global health positively. So in the Philippines, in Manila, tuberculosis is the 6th leading cause of death and illness. So how do they screen for tuberculosis? They actually have these chest x-ray mobile vans that drive out of Manila and go into the suburbs, and they do chest x-rays on a first-come, first-served basis for patients. So they go to a lot of slums and a lot of rural areas, and they do typically about 1,500 x-rays daily for TB screening. After doing that, they drive back to Manila, and the radiologists take up to 3 weeks to do results for each of these chest x-rays because, again, the ratio isn't there. There's 1,500 radiologists per potentially 100 million potential patients. So again, there's this huge delay in care. So how can AI help with something like this? TB or not to be. So Qure.ai has a solution that can detect tuberculosis. And it can screen for it, and it can also identify other common chest abnormalities. Most importantly, though, it can take the normal x-rays and just shift them out of the workflow. So what happens if it's not TB? Well, it's still going to flag other issues. So if you have pneumonia, you still need treatment, right? So you should probably still be alerted by the radiologist. And the cost is actually less than $1 per x-ray. So this is a real solution that can be used in countries that don't have a lot of income to spend on healthcare and have a lot of access issues. Well, you might wonder, how does this change the workflow? So the numbers really speak for themselves. So far, they've screened over 20,000 patients. The area under the ROC is greater than 0.95, and it takes less than a day to diagnosis. So this is what has changed. The existing workflow was previously that patients went to these vans, they got a chest x-ray, then the radiologist looked at the scan. That's where the delay was, right? 2 to 3 weeks. So then imagine now they've identified this patient that might have tuberculosis, and it's now been 3 weeks. And a lot of these patients just aren't living in a house, right? This might be a slum. How are they going to find this patient 3 weeks later? So now you've got another delay to care, is finding and identifying that patient. Then once you finally get the patient, you have to do the sputum test. And then after that, now it's been weeks since they were first having their x-ray or being diagnosed or treated. So how has this workflow changed? Now you're doing the chest x-ray. You have a highly sensitive AI algorithm that screens and flags the patients that don't have TB and might have TB. Then the radiologist looks at them, and then they do the sputum test. So they can actually do the sputum test the same day that they get the chest x-ray now, because the van is there, the algorithm is there, and the sputum test is there. So not all chest x-rays are created equal. So that's a challenge with AI, right? We talk a lot about data sets and access to data. So there's problems. There's different qualities of chest x-rays. Sometimes the patients are very sick, so they're slumped over, they're not really in the field of view, or they're very skinny or very large, so patient positioning is affected, the skill of the radiographer who's taking the x-ray, and then lots of different equipment that's available. So what is the solution to that? You have to have a really good, robust data set. And Qure.ai had over 2.4 million chest x-rays in their data sets from around the world. So different geography, different vendors, and different facilities to increase their accuracy. So our vision is to make healthcare accessible and affordable to everyone. And I think AI can have a major impact on that. These are all the sites of deployment of Qure.ai. So they're making an impact around the world already in this frame of reference of tuberculosis screening, and over 10,000 lives are being impacted daily across 28 countries. So I, as a radiologist, am extremely excited about the implications for global health and for taking care of patients around the world. So AI is here, it's real, and it's already helping patients around the world. And the CEO of Qure.ai is here as well, and he'll be presenting at the Startup Showcase this afternoon. So,
awesome.
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, actually, we have. This is the first speaker that actually ended two minutes ahead of time, so we have time for a couple of questions.
No one ever complains about people finishing their talk early, right?